Subject of the times they are changing, and talking about the influx of the big tech companies, we've had a lot of positive discussion about wearables and data and how that can empower patients and allow them to communicate more effectively with their HCPs. And it's generally been quite a positive, sort of seen as quite a positive thing. But I wondered, is this trend broadly seen as a force for good amongst the pharma communicators?
Well, that's a good question, isn't it? I mean, if you talk, Accenture did a study recently, and when you speak to patients globally, I think it was reported that 49% it was of patients say they're willing to wear wearables in some way, shape or form to track their health, to track their fitness, and to send data either in real time or historically to HCPs. So if half of the global population is willing to do that, this is a really important opportunity, because we've seen some of the benefits it can, there's no lack of hype around some of the benefits about improving treatments, improving adherence, reducing costs for payers. So in a sense, we have to grasp the opportunity. It's very early days, so I think there are a few pitfalls we need to negotiate. Things like data privacy are obviously going to be big issues, aren't they? It was found recently within one therapy area, for example, that up to 80% of the apps that were working in one area of diabetes, I think it was, were sending data back, but patients were unaware of it. So we have to be very transparent about data privacy. We have to have conversations with the regulators, but also with the patients to show them the benefits, because at the end of the day, it's in all of our interests to have this data collected to improve our own health and well-being. So I think it's really interesting times, and I think in terms of wearables too, I think a lot's happening and a lot's changing. So we're in sort of phase one right now, aren't we, where we're sort of wearing these fairly big, fairly kind of brash things around our wrists. Now, the Consumer Electronics Show that's just happened over the weekend in Las Vegas, we've seen a whole new bunch of products coming out. So we've got things like rings for our fingers and then invisible things, so earbuds, which can sort of obviously hide the product itself. Not everybody wants to demonstrate that they're a health freak or a sort of fitness super king. So I think there's going to be a whole lot of evolution happening around things like wearables. And again, it's about talking to patients and understanding how users want to use them, and then having a range of options. There's not going to be just one way of using these wearables. There's going to be lots of different ways. But ultimately, the connected ecosystem, which wearables are one part of, but the key part of, will be absolutely vital to improving treatments and medications and providing a future for technology within healthcare.
It's interesting last year at the Lions Festival, because we had a piece of work that was shortlisted in the innovation category. And we got beaten by Google DeepMind, and it's interesting that we're here at Google today. But listening to their presentation was quite fascinating, in as much as the idea of an artificial intelligence engine that's starting to take all this information and data, and we're passively putting this information in through our wearables and our pieces of technology. And also they might know where we live and what we eat, and they know sort of what time we get up and what time we go to bed. And why couldn't there be a scenario in the future where it starts to anticipate what you might present with? So if you go to a doctor in the future, they kind of go, I kind of know what you're going to kind of talk to me about, because you haven't done any exercise for the last 6 months and you eat quite a lot of dairy products and quite a lot of sugary stuff. And I know that you stopped taking the bus and walking to the bus stop now because you're going in the car. You kind of go, oh my gosh, it's quite weird that suddenly the technology could actually become quite active and a participant in our life, as opposed to merely just taking the data and putting it somewhere else. So it's interesting, the role of who's going to be anticipating the health of the future is going to be fascinating.
I totally agree. I think it's seen as being helpful, the fact that we've talked about big data for a long time, but big data is only useful when you boil it down and create something with it. And suddenly technology, whether it's through AI, robotics or whatever, can find ways of using this massive, almost unmanageable amount of data and create something useful. Now, whether from a comms point of view, it's about precision and information about boil it right down to one particular person and their issues and what drives them and how you can really communicate with them and make a difference to their lives, or whether it's about diagnosis and diagnostics and the development of drugs, and moving things along. So, you know, a lot of, from what my understanding, big data is being evaluated, used, and it's moving and accelerating, you know, drug development by as much as 10 years. Now that's quite interesting for us from a comms point of view, because we've got to get our asses into gear and we've got to move that much quicker. Makes it more exciting, but it changes our jobs.
Yeah, and rather than a big brushstroke piece of communication, if it, as you say, it could be really targeted, which scares the living daylights out of me. The idea that I want people to be relevant when they communicate with me, but not that so relevant that it's almost like premeditated and worked out what I'm going to do next, which is quite scary.
And they can talk back at you.
Yes.
Healthcare brands are getting really, really excited about AI. I mean, so artificial intelligence in healthcare, when we talk to our clients about it, every single time it gets, you know, waves of, you know, mega attention from clients. What will happen with AI in healthcare will be revolutionary, and is revolutionary. I mean, it's already within diabetes. There are technology solutions that can already, or are being designed to already, predict hyper and hypo events, you know, 3 hours before they happen. Apply that to all healthcare and you've suddenly got smart computers which are actually tracking you in real time and warning you about what will happen if you don't change your behaviour right now. And, you know, the real challenge though is, how do we apply AI to our brands and what does it mean? So I think at the moment, most of the healthcare brands we talk to are going through a really big learning curve about artificial intelligence. The possibilities are infinite. They literally are infinite. We can do anything with AI we want to. But how do we find the thing that we need to do that is the best thing for us to do, for our patients, for our audiences, for our products? And so there's this very steep learning curve that we're all going through at the moment to try and understand and then find the right use cases for AI. But I mean, AI is going to be one of the hot topics this year. And, you know, every few months now we're seeing new developments certainly within things like COPD, within diabetes, within cancer, lots and lots of really interesting developments with cognitive computing.
And just sticking with big data for a moment, you're couching these in very positive terms, but there are some people, some very vocal people, who are anxious about this because companies like Google, they're not philanthropists, they're not doing this for their own ends, and it's all very well and good them having access to all this data and knowing when we're going to get sick, but we all know there are other reasons that these data, other ways that these data can be deployed. How much of that an issue do you think that's going to be in the development of these areas? I mean, the same with big pharma companies. There's a counter, there's an anxiety around that for a lot of
I think
people.
that's evident with regards to the new legislation that's happening across Europe in 2018 with regards to the data protection. But the idea that the data sits with the person who puts the data in, and obviously you can ask for it back. I'm not sure how you get that data back, but I think there's big questions being asked about how that data is then used. And I think there's quite a lot of punitive fines potentially talked about if people utilise it in the wrong way. So yes, I think there is quite a lot of restrictive stuff coming on as well, but I think that's on the benefit once again of people as opposed to organisations. But I think that's something that has to be overcome. I think you have to elect to want to give your data to do something. Yeah, so it's going to be fascinating. The next 18 months is going to be interesting how brands get themselves prepared for that as well.
I mean, if you want to opt out of volunteering your data, you should be able to, and it's your data, so you should be able to say no thank you. I think, you know, the role for healthcare is to, you know, weigh up the, show